I was completely isolated. I kind of just felt incubated in that period of my life because uni was still on. It was all online. I was still calling all my friends. I could still go get food, but no one had given me a hug for 5 months. And no one's really just like, there in the morning or, just being like, hey, how's your day going? And so I felt really deprived of that sort of meaningful interaction. And I was watching a lot of Disney films at the time, like single Gen Z millennial who's stuck in COVID. And I just thought like, oh my God, how amazing would it be if I could bring one of these like characters to life? If I could just have like a Disney character just like living with me, just to keep me company through COVID, it would just make it so much better. And so that's when I decided to really start building one, which was Abby.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash and Ana Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us.
Hello and welcome back. We've got Grace Brown here with us today, who does so many amazing things. You build robots, don't you?
Yes, that's correct.
We'll get into more details soon, but first, money wins, money losses. Do you want to go first, Grace?
Yes. So I say my money win would be, unfortunately, with Trump winning the election, it's not great, but my stocks did go up. So that was really nice to go into Perla and see that.
Yeah, amazing. I love that you're a Perla investor as well.
Yeah. No, it's very much a great platform for a Gen Z audience to get into it. Yeah.
I love that your sister got you into it. That's what you mentioned. I was like, I'm always curious, like, how do people hear about Perla? Like, where do they go through it?
Yeah. No, she's very forward thinking, and so she I was using Vanguard at the time, and I didn't know anything about like investing, and it was very convoluted, very confusing. And she was like, just use Perla. It's like for young people, and it made investing look very cool.
Oh, yeah, amazing! Awesome. Very cool. That's the goal, I guess.
Yeah.
What's yours?
So my money win is all kind of interwoven, and I've talked about some of these things in the past. There was something that I forgot to pay for speech pathology, and then I finally called and got everything automated, so I didn't miss a payment. So now my payments for that are automated. And then I took my kid to the doctor, which means that they got signed off to get cheaper speech pathology stuff, because that was on the to-do list, but I had to wait until there was another reason, because I didn't want to just go to the doctors for no reason. So yeah, my kid has an ear infection and juggling all the things. But the money win is not the money win of the ear infection, but the money win is automating all of those costs and going to get some cheaper speech pathology sessions.
No more late fees.
No more late fees. Oh my gosh. I hate when I can't automate stuff. So yes, that's a win.
Amazing. Mine is a money loss. I didn't book a flight home. I flew back from Sydney yesterday, so on Wednesday, and on Sunday I realized I hadn't actually booked the flight home for Wednesday. And when I logged on, they were all so expensive.
Oh no.
Like the afternoon ones were all $900 for like a Sydney to Melbourne flight, which is just insane.
Whoa.
So I ended up getting one that was $450, but that's like a lot for 1 hour of flying time.
Yeah, actually, this reminds me of another money thing, but they have flights, like doing last minute flights. I just bought last minute flights for next week, and they're for New Zealand. And I was
You're to New Zealand next week?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh my God. So a whole other topic. My mom's visiting me, and she's here on a tourist visa, but she didn't realize that her visa is only for 3 months, but she already bought her ticket, which is 97 days. So she's 1 week over. So she has to leave the country to come back into the country. So,
wow.
Well, where can you go? We're going to New Zealand. I guess like the really good thing is we'll have some like downtime, just me and her, because often it's really hard to have conversations with kids around and everything. So that'll be really great. But yeah, not anticipating going to New Zealand, wasn't in the plan. But so tickets were, I don't know why I'm talking. I should have been my money sentence.
Surprise, I'm going to New Zealand. Fun.
Yeah, surprise. I'm going to New Zealand. I'm not around next week, so don't email me.
I'm sure you have an elevator pitch if you've spoken about your company lots and lots. Do you want to give us your quick elevator pitch?
So I wouldn't call this an elevator pitch, but I'd say, so we're building Abby. Abby is, well, actually I should start off with my background's in mechatronics engineering. I'm CEO and co-founder at Andromeda Robotics, which is an early stage social robotics company based here in South Melbourne. And we're building Abby, who's this 110 centimeter tall, bright and colorful companion humanoid robot who goes into like nursing homes and children's hospitals. And I like to say that she's your best friend right out of the box. So she's programmed and designed to be everyone's like true best friend and companion, someone who's there to listen to them and really be there for them if they don't have, the same opportunities for social interaction.
I love this so much because I feel like when you think about robots, you think of like maybe Tesla's robot or like evil robots or like robots folding laundry or something. You don't think about them being social companions as much. So this is like a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's definitely like the kind of the new wave of the next wave of robotic technology. I think in the first few generations of robotic technology, it was really focused on very industrial and manufacturing type applications. And even the humanoid robots today, they're all quite like, they're all for, picking up and doing very laborious sort of activities. But I think with new technologies, with like large language models and everything, you can now build really sophisticated companion robots that are used for, like social needs and care needs and things that are more creative. And I think there's a huge space in our world for that type of impact.
Yeah, it's amazing. Take us back to the start. Like, how did you decide you just wanted to build a robot?
So I started building Abby as a passion project when I was still in my last few years of my undergraduate degree. I was studying in Melbourne and it was in 2020, which,
like the worst time of COVID.
Yeah. And so during that time, my family's up in Brisbane and the borders had shut. And so I was stuck in my student accommodation. And for a period of about like 5 months, I actually had no in-person contact with anyone. The only person I saw in that 5-month period in person was the security guard. And even him, we had huge social distancing rules and stuff. So I was completely isolated. I kind of just felt incubated in that period of my life because uni was still on. It was all online. I was still calling all my friends. I could still go get food, but no one had given me a hug for 5 months. And no one's really just like, there in the morning or, just being like, hey, how's your day going? And so I felt really deprived of that sort of meaningful interaction. And I was watching a lot of Disney films at the time, like single Gen Z millennial who's stuck in COVID. And I just thought like, oh my God, how amazing would it be if I could bring one of these like characters to life? If I could just have like a Disney character just like living with me, just to keep me company through COVID, it would just make it so much better. And so that's when I decided to really start building one, which was Abby.
Yeah, amazing. Do you think if COVID hadn't have happened, you might not have built Abby, or did you always have it in your mind before that?
I did have a fascination with humanoid robotics even before then. Like I was actually more interested in like the control systems for a bipedal robot because it is incredibly complex and it was just something that really, really fascinated me, just like building something that, is so complex but had to be so stable. And at that point in time, I hadn't even taken a control system subject at uni. So like I was not, in a place where I had the background knowledge to build that, but I was just reading so many papers and textbooks on how to build that. And so I had that fascination for, probably before I had the idea of building a companion. And that kind of project just sort of merged into what Abby is today. But we had to kind of put the bipedal aspect of Abby to the side because from a commercial perspective, it's just didn't make sense to build it at this stage. I mean, eventually she will be bipedal. Well, my engineers don't like this name, but I want to build a system called a glide stride system. So
glide stride. Yeah, okay, Grace is making like walking fingers for anyone who's just listening.
Yeah. Basically what you're saying, it's really hard to get a robot to walk with 2 feet for anyone who's like not seeing your fingers move across the screen. Yeah. So we want to build a glide stride system and so that she's got wheels on her feet and then she has the sort of aesthetic of bipedal locomotion, but it removes the complexity of it. And so that's something that me and my engineers are working on at the moment.
Okay, so it looks like it's walking, but it's on wheels.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
it's just like me on roller skates.
Yeah. It's just like an illusion of walking. Yeah.
Abby is so exciting. Like I just love the look of her and the bubbles. And I just want to give her a hug too. Like already just like she definitely encompasses that kind of Disney-esque friendly vibe. And it's so interesting that that's kind of come out of that COVID section, right? Like everyone was feeling very lonely, very isolated. And to have someone so happy and vibrant. So I definitely see so much of how it can improve people's moods. So and we talked a little bit about the feedback that you got from some of the people who get to hang out with Abby.
Yeah. So like when she, I think what you asked me was like one of the most interesting anecdotes, which was, during the periods where Abby can't go into a home because either they're, have a COVID outbreak or for whatever reason, a lot of the residents will often email my team and just ask for videos or photos of Abby and say that they miss her and they can't wait to see her again. And the way they talk about Abby and the way they communicate with her and stuff is just like, she's their grandchild or, a true friend. And so it's really endearing to kind of see the real emotional connections that people are building with her. Yeah.
I love to imagine, because you put them in aged care homes. Yeah. I love to imagine older people emailing you because my grandma likes to email me all the time and they're like quite funny the way they're put. So just imagine being like, where's Abby?
Why isn't Abby in today?
Kind regards.
Yeah. It's very cute. Yeah.
When did you know it could be a full business? Did you always build it with the intention of this is going to be my career, I want to build my own job, or did something happen along the way?
So it definitely wasn't like, it started off very much as just a project, and it was a project that I knew I wanted to kind of dedicate my life to, but I didn't think it could be a business it didn't cross my mind whether this could be a business or not. Robotics is very, very expensive. And so especially as a uni student, like I just really didn't have much of the budget to, build Abby to the scale that I wanted her to be. And so I was actually going around to all of my like university professors and all the academic departments and asking them to fund this project and being like, we could put, like Melbourne University's sort of like name behind this. And, I was kind of looking just for an avenue to be able to really buy all the equipment and hardware that I needed. I had a 3D printer and I had like, soldering tools and general electronics. And so I had a few things in my room that I could start building a basic prototype for. And I also built a simulation pretty early on as well. But yeah, there was a lot of pushback for, there wasn't a very clear benefit for the university to fund this. And so I started looking at other ideas of how could I get this funded. And actually Vogue Codes, they in 2021, they had like a competition, or it was like a pitch competition. It was like if you pitch a business idea, you could win $10,000. And I thought that would be a really interesting way to start, funding this project if that could happen. But I thought, oh, it's Vogue, like, probably everyone's going to apply. And like, and then on the very, very last minute, I decided to submit a video, and you had to pitch a business idea. And at the time I didn't have one. I just wanted Abby. And so I just my whole pitch was just around how humanoid robotics is just going to really, there's this huge evolution, and I kind of want to lead that wave. And, anyways, we won the competition, which was crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I used that $10,000 to fund her lower body, and just started building. But through that competition, the mentors in that, there were, some mentors from StartMate, and as well as just the startup ecosystem in general. And they encouraged me to kind of, explore this as a business idea. And so that's when I did market research and started learning a lot about what does it mean to run a business. And so that's the start of it.
Amazing. It really highlights the importance of networking and putting yourself out there and just telling people about your ideas.
Yeah. Building in public was something, one of my mentors very early on had encouraged me to, build in public. He had sort of just stated to me all the benefits of just sharing your work publicly. And it's a really hard thing to do because you're not always proud of the work you have early on, because you know that there's so much more to do and to go, and it's probably not your best work if you're just starting out. But I kind of had to I think that year, like 2021, 2022, my philosophy of myself was just to be shameless and just, so I started posting a lot of things online about what I'm building, and, I even put out a student ad to see if students wanted to, join. And, about 300 students actually emailed wanting to take part. And
that's incredible. Amazing.
Yeah. So it, really kind of, building in public just has been so incredible for the business, for Abby.
So important to just get over that mental hurdle of like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there, I'm not really sure, and then just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, similar to like your story with posting like TikTok videos or reels. Like I think I heard you say you early on was it was very, very similar.
It was very random at the start. You know what I was doing? I was just hoping, trying and seeing what happened. And now it's blossomed into like a podcast and a book. And now it's my full-time job, which is so wild. But it's crazy.
Well, I think of it this way as well. It's like you have a passion project. You have something that obviously you found that there's a gap, right? There's a gap around isolation, being alone, wanting a companion, the emotional side, wanting to build it out. And then to build it out, you need the finances. To build it out, you need the support network. To build it out, you need to potentially start a business. So it's not as though the business was an idea that you had. You just had a passion project that you wanted to build out, but then you need the finances and the business side to make that become a reality, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get the money? How do you get the money to do the thing, right? Like I think that's the big hurdle that so many people are afraid of. If they have an idea or a passion project, how do you see it through? So what did you do?
Yeah, you've got $10,000. Now what?
Now what?
So actually, my plan immediately after that was, I was in a position where, my background's in engineering and I didn't really know anything about starting a business. But what I'd heard from people, mentors and stuff, is that, you should really apply for these accelerators. They're like these 12-week startup schools, and they come with a little bit of funding as well. And they're like perfect for people who have just, a really, really early idea, maybe an MVP. But even if you didn't have an MVP, even just at the ideation stage.
MVP is minimum viable
product. Yeah. Sorry, I'll try and make sure not to use too many acronyms.
We do it all the time with like ETF and stuff like that, and we forget sometimes too.
Yeah. Minimal viable product.
Yes. And so I went through StartMate, which is the most prestigious like startup accelerator in Australia, and they're really, really awesome program. And they just, we applied twice. We actually didn't get in the first round, which is actually really common. I think people get really disheartened when they don't get in the first round. But most people, like in my cohort, I think more than half of the people in my cohort had applied 2, sometimes 3 times. Because usually the first time you apply, like you're not, like they give you feedback, which is great. And I just took on the feedback they gave me at the time was that I didn't really know my customer segment very well, which was true. I hadn't spoken to any nursing homes. I had just sort of hypothesized that this group of people will want Abby, but I've never actually validated that. And so with that feedback, I took that on board and went out and spoke to like 40, 50 aged care homes and, really got all of the anecdotal feedback that I needed to be like, oh, they actually are interested. My theory was correct. And it's now not just a hypothesis, but it's like validated. And now I want to take it to the next step. And it was in that second stage that we got in, and then they taught us everything about fundraising from investors, building out a team, finding like product market fit, how to really get, your first product in market, even pricing your first product, like all of the basics that you need to know, which is a lot, but it's it's my opinion, way better than an MBA.
Yeah, because you actually have the hands-on experience. You're actually learning, you're taking that information. I remember when I was contracting at Perler, we were still doing the product market fit at that time. Do people really connect with the idea of financial independence? Do people really want a platform that helps them continuously invest over a long period of time? And it seems so obvious now because it exists, but like for anybody, you need to know that you have the customers who are willing to pay for the thing, that you're actually solving a problem, and that it's valuable, right?
Yeah. You've clearly been through the startup journey or going through it.
I mean, it's obviously, I'm probably more interested in that side, whereas I'm sure Tasha brings it back to the other side.
Human things. I was just wondering how you deal with rejection, because I know that a lot of people would be like, oh no, I'm not accepted. That's it. Like, that's not for me. I'm going to try something else now.
Yeah. Well, you just kind of like going back to what I said my philosophy was for those 2 years was just being absolutely shameless. Like, I've got a label in my Gmail that just has a fire emoji, and it's from all of the rejection emails that I've gotten from investors and just all the comments and feedback that they have. And in the moment you can be really upset, especially if you've had a long. It's like dating. Like maybe the more you've been with someone and then you end it, it's a bit harder. And the same with relationship or investor relationships. The longer that you have an ongoing relationship with them, the harder the rejection could be. So it varies investor to investor, but it's just part of the process. And to be honest, like I kind of used it as like, it really just lit a fire under me, which is why I use the fire emoji, because I use it because I think the main reason we were getting rejected was that people would say that they really liked my vision, they really liked my passion for what I'm doing, and they clearly believe that I'm doing my life's work, but they just didn't believe that anyone in this world would pay for a robot when people exist. Like, why would you replace human care with a robot? That doesn't make sense. And why would anyone pay for that? And there's a few things I want to say to that.
Yeah, crazy. Things like these people haven't been in an aged care home. I did like an 8-week prac in an aged care home, and I can like see perfectly. But I guess if you're like an investor sitting outside, you're like, oh, that seems a bit silly.
Yeah, no. And it's understandable where people get their assumptions from. Like, yeah. So there's like firstly, replacing human care with a robot would genuinely be a terrible idea. I think we should be having more human interaction. But the reality is that that's just not available. Like, there's
not enough funding.
There's not enough people. Even the homes with funding, they don't have the people. Like, there's just, in all the homes we work in, there's about a 30% like vacancy rate in their workforce, and so the staff who are on the floor working, they're like addressing the most critical care needs, people who are choking, people who have fallen over, people who are stuck, people who are, fallen over in the shower. Like, that's what they're focusing on. And so there's no one there who's just walking by being like, hey, how's your day going? How are you feeling? I heard you got a haircut, nice haircut. Oh, like just these small things that don't seem important, but until you're deprived of them, like I was in COVID, you just don't realize that that's actually like a basic human need, I think, to live a high quality life.
Yeah. I did my occupational therapy prac in an aged care home, and it was quite like an underfunded one. And most of my prac, I was just walking around and saying hi to people, and they would get so excited about like us sitting down. And we brought an alpaca in. That was really fun. Had like someone come and visit. Yeah. And like the faces, and people were so excited to see something a bit different and to like have people in their rooms visiting them. And it's crazy how like such a small interaction for a minute or so could like make their whole week so much better.
Yeah. Cause they literally, like a lot of them don't even have like visitors, right? So over 40% of people don't have visitors. Like they're either widowed, don't have children. And even the ones who do have family don't like, they can't visit all the time for whatever reason. And so like, you're just kind of left there alone, and it's just, it's pretty sad. So yeah, so there's definitely a strong, and even then, like, I don't think investors pushed back on the idea that maybe they were alone, but they did push back on the idea that people would pay for this, which, yeah, that's the fire that lit under me where I was like,
But they are paying for this.
Oh yeah, they are paying for Abby. Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, this year will be just shy of like $3 million in revenue, which is really,
amazing.
really exciting.
Congrats.
Yeah. So like this is our first year as a revenue generating business. And so that was a huge milestone for me. But basically like after all the rejection of, and it was all the same comments, no one's going to pay for your robot. Like no one's going to even if there's a age case for it, it's just not the funding for it. And I just wanted to prove everyone wrong that there was a place in this world for Abby and there is a way to fund her. And, and aged care is really just the first market that we want to start with. It's the one where we see her having the greatest area for impact and especially a great industry to introduce someone like her. But eventually, I want her to like kind of proliferate to the point where there's, more Abbies around the world than there are like dogs and cats. And
An Abby at home would be fun, or an Abby in preschool. And
Oh my God, my kids would love Abby. Yeah, I would love Abby.
Yeah.
Abby can come hang out with me and tell me or ask me if I'm having a good day. Like everyone needs an Abby in their life.
Yeah.
How did you find that first person to sell it to?
So that one was a little bit, it was definitely tricky because, especially early on when I was talking to all the customers, even though they had indicated there was definitely a gap for her, like the product of Abby was so early, like she wasn't delivering that value really early on. Like I was still building her in parallel to running like tests of people using her. And so I didn't charge for like the first year of her being in aged care homes. And it was just running like free trials and pilots. And that was really valuable for me. Like I would highly, highly recommend if people are in a position to do that, starting their business. Like I know not everyone was. I was in a really fortunate position where I was really good at, I'm digressing a lot now, but I was really good at, my friend said I was really good at saving. I actually wasn't really good at saving. I was really good at not spending, which I think there is a difference.
Interesting.
We can come back to that.
Yeah.
And
write that down so I don't forget.
But what that meant was when I actually started my business, when I was only 21, 22, I had about $30,000 saved. And that was enough for me to not take a salary for, like 6 months and just try this full time without charging anyone anything. But eventually, even when we did get Abby to a level where she was starting to add that value that I'd always been promising, I think the early customers, because she was free for so long, they were very apprehensive of paying. They're like, why do we have to suddenly pay for her? Like this, they really struggled to make that switch. And so it wasn't until, but the word of mouth was really good because she was having that impact. And so other homes were hearing about what I was doing in these homes. And then other new homes who hadn't had seen her, I just started charging the new homes. And then eventually when I started charging other homes, I go back to the homes that I was working in for free and just saying we are like now charging for the service. But yeah, they struggled to make the switch because she was free for so long. And
how much does Abby cost? Can I ask?
Yeah,
or it depends.
Well, I mean, in building her, right, including labor, she's under $10,000, which is really, really good for a robot because something like Abby was, something like Abby was, just 5 to 7 years ago would have cost us about $100,000 to build.
Wow.
And so like the cost of hardware is just going rapidly down. So that's really exciting. And it also makes me really excited to be an engineer in this generation because we just have so much access to kind of like I said, like large language models, but then all of these like different sorts of like electronic PCB boards. That means that you can start like rapidly prototyping, even like accessibility to 3D printers. Like you can really start building really sophisticated technology like really early. Like the barrier to entry to building this is so minimal now. Like that's just so exciting to me. I always said like I felt like a fake engineer because everything's already pre-built for me and I just kind of, it's almost like Lego, like learn how to use this kit and kind of put it together. Whereas like engineers like 20, 30 years ago were like, like on a really, really low level building like their own PCB boards and like they didn't even have PCB boards. They were just soldering everything from scratch and not even having transistors and things like, it was
crazy.
Yeah.
You raised a really good point though around having savings and actually having the choice to not have to take a salary, not need to get a job. How did you get to that point of having 30 grand saved? Like, what do you mean by good at not spending?
So I think from about high school through to uni, all of my friends were always very impressed with how much I had saved, but I was never having a savings goal. So I grew up in like very low socioeconomic background. So I kind of just, I wasn't in the habit of spending. I think the way people live right now is like they're in a habit of spending. They're in a habit, and I'm in a little bit of that right now as well. But so as I started, I worked in hospitality from about when I was about 15, and I always worked like always on the Christmas holidays, like periods where they'd pay double, triple the
public holiday pay.
Yeah. So and I worked in restaurants where they tipped really well as well. This was in Melbourne. Like I know it's Australia, you don't need a tip, but like tourists still tip, and it was awesome.
My mom's visiting; she's just tipping everyone.
Make everyone stay.
Yeah, and so I think think growing up in a low socioeconomic background, even as I started earning money, I didn't spend it in the same way, like as it was coming in. I still kind of had the same habits of just not spending. Like I wasn't trying to save, but I also wasn't, so I think that there is a difference, so I think the friction for spending is or saving is not as great for me as it would be for someone who grew up in a wealthier family, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think I was kind of similar for a while because I didn't know what I was saving for. Like I didn't have a big number goal. I just liked having money and liked it just being there and liked not spending, I guess. But it's really, But
it is hard with we're constantly bombarded with things to spend money on, right? So I think it's great if you can build those habits at a young age, but so many people have to unlearn those habits, right?
Yeah,
the flip side of that is it's just really hard to save when you want to connect with your friends on social media, and guess what? You're getting ads constantly for things that you're interested in.
So good these days. If you look at something one time and it will follow you around until you buy it. It's crazy.
I know it's insane, and that just wasn't the case 10 years ago, right? Let alone 2 years ago. It hasn't been as intense.
It's gotten hectic.
It's harder. Yeah, but going back to your story, that's amazing that you're able to do that so that you can focus on building a robot, right?
But 30 grand isn't that much either. Like when you got to that 6-month mark and you were running out of money, had you raised more money by then?
So my personal runway for myself was to so I was actually starting my master's degree. This was the start of 2022. And I'd actually decided to just not do my master's degree for the first semester, just defer it, not do it entirely, and give myself a 6-month window to just try a startup. Whatever that means, like talking to investors, building the product, talking to customers, and whatever I learn in that 6 months is what it is. And I had the intention of wanting to raise some money by that time. But if I didn't, it's all good. Like I've had this 6 months learning experience and I'll go back to uni and just start my master's degree and graduate 6 months later. So that was always my plan. But then at the end of the 6 months I had applied for, this was my second time applying for StartMate. I talked to quite a few investors as well. We were rejected quite a bit at that stage. But then, we applied for StartMate, and literally about 2-3 weeks before uni was starting, which I had already enrolled in all my subjects and everything, we got into StartMate, and that was about $120,000 at the time. And so that meant I could, I deferred my studies another semester. I got my co-founder at the time to quit his full-time job, and we just started the business for it. Once again, it was another 6 months, and that was the goal. Let's do it for another 6 months and see where we go, and if we can make something of it. And off the back of that 6 months, we raised more money, which was about $500,000 at that time. And then we deferred another 6 months, and it just kind of escalated from there to the point where I think, only at the start of this year where I'm like, I don't think I'm going back to uni.
No, I think you're fine now. You know enough now.
And I just want to kind of pause on that comment, because so many people think that they have to do the thing in the order. They have to go to school, they have to get the job, they have to do the thing, right? And in your case, you're like, I want to defer this because this opportunity is here only for a short time. Or I don't know if you felt that way, but I think for a lot of people, it's like, if I don't take this now, when? So I have to go and follow this through. Did you feel that way?
No, I actually, that's a really good point, because I strongly believed I needed a master's degree to be able to, navigate the world. Yeah. I was like, I need this master's degree to then be competent enough to be able to get full-time work and, just be a competent professional. And I was talking to one of my mentors about that, being like, it would be a dream of mine to be able to build Abby full-time, maybe eventually as a startup. And he was like, well, why don't you do that? And I'm like, well, because I got to do my master's degree. And he was like, and that's what he asked me. He's like, why? And I'm like, what do you mean why?
Yeah, that's the rule.
Yeah. And then he just really contradicted that and just said, no, you can do it right now. I'm like, I can just leave uni? And that's preposterous. How dare you propose something like that? But I sat on that for a week, and I just ruminated on that for about a whole week. And then I talked to one of my other best friends at the time, who is now my co-founder. And he was like, you could totally quit uni and do a startup. And I was like, what?
It's like a limiting belief, right? It's a belief we've picked up, whether it's our parents or just society or whatever it is, being like, it's holding us back because we feel like we need to do the thing. So unless we actually have someone else who helps us or ourselves to be like, break through this, in the case of your mentor or your co-founder, right? Being like,
I think it's hard when you're trying to be taken seriously as well. Because I feel this sometimes where I feel a bit young when you're talking to people in the finance space, and they're all older and more serious, and they've done all this stuff, and you're like, I'm just random on Instagram. And trying to be like, no, I know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure that's the same with you, where you're like, all these people are maybe more qualified than me, or other stuff is happening. But really, you had a cool idea and then you did it.
Yeah. No, definitely.
There's a lot to be said about that. Yeah.
I love the idea as well of giving yourself 6 months instead of letting it just go on forever. I feel like a lot of people have ideas, but they never have a deadline to actually action them by.
Yeah, well, my deadline was imposed by the fact that I didn't have infinite money. So I did actually map out my finances and was like, this is how much I'm paying in rent. This is how much I spend on food roughly. I was very, very, very frugal for those 6 months. Wasn't really purchasing anything online. Yeah. So I mapped out that 6 months was a really comfortable period for me to be able to just not earn money and be able to focus on this. And I knew it was going to sting a little bit because my savings from like the age of like 16 to like, 22 was just going up. And so that was something I had a lot of pride in. And so for it to stagnate, what did feel really uncomfortable. And it stagnated for a while because even when we did get funding, like I didn't pay myself very much. Like I paid myself the minimum that I needed to just live, like, comfortably, but also, like I said, being in low socioeconomic backgrounds, like even when I paid myself like 50, 60 grand, which was like minimum wage, it was so comfortable for me. I always said like minimum wage in Australia is fucking great, not what you should maybe strive for, but it's so comfortable. But that's also, once again, one of my beliefs on a double-edged sword, because it's so comfortable here. Like sometimes I feel like there's not really something that pushes people to want to go and do more or learn more. Like I think like my mom's from China and my whole family, like the reason they pushed and worked so hard is because like if they didn't do that, like they literally grew up in like a hut and they didn't have food. My mom grew up like starving. Like it's just this totally different scenario. And so they had to work hard because like the alternative is like you starve and don't have water and don't have all this stuff. And so whereas here it's like you don't have to work very hard to get minimum wage and you still live an excellent life. So it's great because it's like, it's great, but it's also, I don't know, that's my belief, and I don't know.
Well, my parents are the same way, like immigrated from Croatia in a lot of poverty. And it is one of those things where research has shown, like there's a book called The Millionaire Next Door that talked about immigrants who came from hardship, build businesses, build lives for themselves, but then their kids often squander it because they didn't have the same values kind of put in place of having to work hard. So if we can inherit some of those beliefs from our parents, hopefully we can set ourselves up financially because we work towards it instead of it being handed to us.
Yeah.
So it is an important thing when it comes to work, money balance and thinking about all of that. Because we carry those some of those beliefs, or we don't, based on what was handed to us or not, right?
Yeah. It was a good reminder that we don't always need things that we think we need. Like you can live off essentials that aren't like all these extra things on top of it.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So what's next for you? What's next for Abby?
So we've got a really full pipeline for 2025. So we've got about like 30 plus scheduled Abbies going out in the next 6 months. So really like we're hiring. We've got 11 positions opening up that we're hoping to fill by January. And I guess it's really just, we're going out for another fundraise. So we're doing our Series A. Series A is like, with fundraising, you've got kind of like a scale. The first round's called the pre-seed, second round's called the seed. So we've done the first two, and Series A is like the third round. And so we're doing our Series A right off the back of New Year to hopefully scale and grow. And we might be getting a new warehouse as well, which is crazy because we only just moved in like 4 months ago. Yeah, so we grew really fast. I only signed a 3-year lease. Originally, I was thinking of whether I should sign a 3-year or a 5-year lease, and everyone encouraged me to sign 3. And I'm so glad I did because we're already like
growing so fast.
Yeah. Which is a great problem to have. It's so exciting.
How is it raising money?
Yeah, it's difficult. It is so like it is raising venture capital funding is such an introspective journey because a lot of raising venture capital funding, like it's asking a lot of questions about the business, but the business is so tied into who you are, and so I think it gets you to grow and adult really, really fast. And kind of like we were saying before, you get a lot of rejection. Like most people will say no, and you just can't really take it personally. And some people have really good feedback, and that's why I save all the emails because I'll look back at it a few months later and I'll have like more experience and be able to understand if like, this feedback was actually really valid. I'm glad that, I have this information, or I can look back and be like, well, that was just a shitty thing to say, and I'm just gonna keep that there one day for my novel or something.
Your novel, yes, coming soon, maybe. How have you found hiring people?
Really, well, when I was in uni, I was involved in quite a wide range of student projects. So I was part of my university like rocketry team. I was also part of
rocketry. What did you say?
Rocketry. So we built like a rocket.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Oh my rocketry, building rockets. My kids are gonna be so jealous that I hung out with you today.
And there were all of these different engineering projects, and in a few of them, I ended up becoming like a lead. And so I was always recruiting students into these projects. So I would like run interviews and ask some questions about their experience. And so I actually had like not a lot, but a bit of training, definitely hiring like at least like graduate engineering students. So when it came to running the company, it didn't really feel much different. It felt like I'd done it like 100 times before, and I'd run teams at that time before as well. So it just felt very natural. And I think that's probably why we had such a good start to the business as well, because that was a learning experience I had when I was in uni as opposed to when I started the business. The tricky thing was hiring for more senior talent. So that one was really tricky because it's like you don't know how, well, I guess you don't know how to assess them. You're just like, they say all the right things. And I think the one thing I did try to emphasize with senior talent was that, it's very different. What we're doing is very different to a corporate job. On my role as well, like a CEO and founder, like I could be, on Monday, I'll be preparing the board pack and the finances and all the management accounts that I need to show all of my investors and my company for Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I'll be running to like Costco to get some sandwiches for my team, and everything in between. So I think I try to communicate very, very clearly that coming into a startup, like even as a senior, like you're going to be doing everything in that range. And I think, what I've seen is like a lot of senior talent do feel a lot of work is quite beneath them. Even if they say it's not, when it comes to it, they don't want to do things because they're like, why don't we hire for this? And it's like, well, we don't need to. Like we could just, we could unload the dishes ourselves, or we could we could do these things ourselves. But at this stage, but we're getting to a stage where we're big enough where we are starting to hire more operational people because we are just so busy. But I think that was a tricky one to kind of filter for.
Have you ever hired for people in your jobs?
Yes.
How have you found that?
Oh, it depends on the role. Yeah. So it is really interesting because I think I've hired a whole bunch of people. I remember, and some of them even more senior than I am, depending on what the role is and vice versa. But it can be a challenge I don't know. There's so much. That's a whole other episode we could do on hiring people, what to look for, so forth.
I have a final question that I asked one of your close friends for, and she said to ask you about your personal routine to maintain your health and well-being.
I think, so this is from Mia. Hi, Mia. I think I know what she's talking about here. So the thing about running a business is like, it doesn't matter like what you're going through. Like you kind of just have to get through it. That sounds really, really shitty, but like, it's so for example, like statistically, like a lot of businesses just do not work out for various reasons. And the stats are against you for, being successful in running a business, but it doesn't matter if your chances of succeeding in one activity is like 1 in 10 or 1 in 10,000, like your job is still the same. You have to go and just do it and you can't look at that. And it's the same with like whatever's going on in your personal life or whatever's going on in your life. Like if you're going through a breakup, if you're going through like hardship, difficult things, like you kind of just have to show up the same. And that was really difficult because life just happens, like things in life just happen. And so many times I think, especially early in my business, like I had a co-founder split, which very much feels like a divorce.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Because I was thinking I haven't seen your co-founder.
Well, there was 3 of us. There's now 2 of us. Okay. And a co-founder split very much feels like a divorce. And so that was especially at like, I was 22, 23 at the time. And that was a really difficult process to go through, but I had to still show up the same every day. So like, for example, I think what Mia was referencing was my routine when I was in the US. We were about to run out of money. I was somewhat like subtly being hinted that they wanted to sue me. And, everything was just like really scary. And, I had tied my whole identity into the business. And so it was really scary. And I was in the US by myself. And I was also going through a breakup at the time, which was really difficult. And then, but I was going to all these investor meetings and I just had to go into the room and be like, here's how we're going to be a $10 billion business. You have to show up with like, like this ludicrous confidence in yourself and your business. But like literally 8 a.m., 9 a.m. that morning, I was crying. And so I actually scheduled when I'd cry because if I didn't schedule it, like it would come out randomly, which actually did happen in one investor meeting. And that's when I knew I had to start scheduling these moments for myself. And because you're crying, your eyes get red. So I carried around all these like eye drops with me to like, so that would reduce the redness in your eyes. And so it was like in the morning I would wake up, I'd have a big cry and then I'd brush my teeth, put my eye drops in, go get a coffee, go to a meeting. And then 11 a.m. I'd go do the same. I'd find a public bathroom somewhere, go do another cry and then just go through it. So it was like, and in that time I was calling Mia between all my breaks being like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And she would tell me like, it's okay. You don't have to run a business. Like you can stop. But it's when you're in that stage, like that's actually, even though you're going through like so much emotionally and psychologically, like that's the last thing you want to hear. You don't want to stop, even though it's like bringing you such like immense like, crap in your brain mentally. Like you don't want to stop. You just want this thing to succeed. And I'm really, really, really glad that I kind of just push through it and just, I don't know, like, I think that's when people give up, and I've always believed that you can't actually really fail. Like, people don't fail, people just give up, and so that was true to me. And I also know, which is scary enough, I also know some of the hardest moments in my business are still yet to come. So I've got that routine, and and then of course, journaling, therapy, gym, all the rest of it. I just try to make sure they're all in place so that I've got like the mental fortitude to kind of tackle whatever comes my way in the next few years.
Did you write crying in your calendar? Or do you write just call me out?
I think I just write like block or like just like a little thing, and
Research also shows that if you schedule in time for like stressing, like just scheduling time for stressing and being anxious, like it actually reduces your stress. So scheduling time in for crying is really important.
So good, to share that as well, because I feel like you don't hear that from a lot of people. They're like, oh, this is hard, but they don't like share the day to day of like how it was hard and how you dealt with it.
Yeah,
such an important.
Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. It just seemed like the natural thing to do at the time. It wasn't something that I structured very much. It was just, honestly, the whole way I came up was because I had accidentally cried in a meeting when they'd ask, oh, so how's your day going? Which was just, a general way to start a call. And
like, oh no, it's so terrible.
And then you're trying to bring the confidence and being like, let me tell you how this building's growing.
I'm going to be a billionaire. I promise. Oh.
Yeah. So but there's no scheduled crying at the moment, which is really nice.
Just schedule laughter, maybe.
Yeah.
Good hangs.
It's important to have people who like hype you up in real life as well. I was lucky to meet Mia when we were doing the Forbes photo shoot, and she was just like so supportive and so lovely and just so happy to be there. And it's so important to have those people around you.
Oh, I know. I actually called her like, maybe like 2 weeks ago when we were on phone, and I just told her that I realized that honestly a lot of my success wouldn't even be here without her. Like, which because it sounds great because she's not involved in my business or anything, but it's like, she is my like full like decompressor, like we'll just jump on a call and I'll just unload. And even though a lot of the things I say is like, out of her depth, and she knows it and I know it, and I don't expect her to solve my problems, but just having someone who's just there to like, elevate you and empower you and just like, or even just let you decompress, like that's just so invaluable. So even whenever I read books, I'm really interested in like the forwards or also like who it's to,
yeah, I love that.
Because I feel like those are the people who it's not just the people who went out and did the success, but it's the supporters who really enabled them to be able to do whatever it is that they're doing. And so, when I write my book, it's probably going to be Tamia.
That's amazing. Because I find as you do more successful stuff, I found it in my life, people kind of drop off or they get a bit envious or like things happen, and there's those few that stick around. So it's so nice to have someone like me. I was just like, Mia's so lovely. And I was so like happy just to like see her being there and being so hyped about you.
Yeah. Well, we've always sort of been each other's like hype friends. And I think we've always had one of those friendships where like we've been friends since we were about 14, so 10 years now. And we've just never once had like jealousy or envy or, like even comparison, like it just never we've never had that in our friendship.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
We all need people like that in our lives. I have to tell Tash, like my partner is my biggest cheerleader, and you need that in your life because you are going to fail and time again. And you need someone to just be like, it's okay, pick yourself up. Schedule the crying time. Let's get it done. There'll be another meeting. Go get it done. Because otherwise you wouldn't be where you are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your story and coming on today.
Oh, thanks. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Where are you hiring? How do people find a job if they love you and want to come work for you?
It'll be on LinkedIn this week. So probably 2 weeks from when people hear this.
Okay. Amazing. LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. Thanks.
You.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.